Hello there, and welcome to Technology Essentials in Education. My name is Monica Burns, and I am so glad you are joining today for this conversation with Dr. Desiree Alexander. I've known Desiree for a while now. Last time I saw her face to face, at least, was sitting in one of her sessions at the TCEA conference. She's a favorite when I see her listed as a speaker. I always want to make sure to get to her session at a conference if I can. And today we're talking about a topic that might be interesting to you if you are supporting learners in your community, really at any level, but particularly colleagues who are learning about something related to their own professional development. So today, Desiree talks about self-paced courses. So a topic that I know often generate some questions, right? If you have never been behind the scenes of a self-paced course, Desiree takes us through that together today. She supports educational leaders, teachers, and lots of people connected to the world of education, right, as the deputy director of an educational nonprofit in Louisiana and the founder and CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting. So whether you've participated in a self-paced course as a student, have been behind the scenes creating courses for colleagues, this is a fantastic episode, a great conversation to listen to. Dr. Desiree Alexander has lots of great insight to share. This episode is brought to you by Jotform. Jotform provides an all-in-one solution to streamline administrative tasks, enhance community engagement, and foster innovation. Using their no-code drag-and-drop forms and workflows, your teams can securely collect and store data, automate tasks, and collaborate on team resources. Educational institutions are also eligible for a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today about all things self-paced courses, which I know is a topic that educators maybe have participated in courses, thought about running a course. So kind of all the things we'll talk about today. But before we jump in, can you share a bit about your role in education? What does your day-to-day look like?
Sure. My day to day is not a day to day. I have everything is different every day. And even though I plan for things, I try to get through them. But of course, if a phone call comes in or an email or someone needs support or I need to go to a school, then that's what I do. So I am the deputy director for an educational nonprofit here in the state of Louisiana, and I am the founder CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, and that just leads me to really I have an S on my chest. I'm support. I'm
Yeah.
support for anything and everything, educational leaders, teachers, secretaries, whoever and whatever. If you're dealing with education, I am support.
And I think, that is such a huge part of, your role, of course, at the nonprofit, right, through the consulting work. And I've seen you present. We were just chatting about how the last time we were face to face together was at a conference where I got to sit in one of your sessions. So you do a lot of live presentations and workshops for people who are, right there sharing a room, sharing a space with you. But you also offer things and lead other kinds of professional learning, which is what we're kind of talking about today. So, what drew you to creating self-paced courses for educators?
I think the first self-paced course that I created was for educational leadership certification. The
Mhm.
test is called SLLA, and it's in like half of the United States takes the SLLA to
Yeah.
become certified in educational leadership. And I was doing in-person classes and they were like 6 hours long, and then they became 7 hours long because of course you add content.
Yeah.
And now it's like an 8 hour long course. And it just wasn't sustainable. So
Yeah.
people would ask for it and I would feel so guilty. I was like, I just don't have time.
Yeah.
And then they would ask for it in different states and different
Mhm.
cities. And I would try to accommodate it. And it just became very overwhelming. And I was like, there has to be a better way to get this content out.
Yeah.
Because it's mainly, honestly, like 6, 7, 8 hours of lecture is really,
Right.
here's the information. So there's not a lot of like turn and talk. And like, no,
Yeah.
we gotta get through this information.
Mhm.
So because of that, it lent itself very well to a self-paced class.
Yeah.
And that was my first self-paced class that, I created. And that's where like the passion and the love for self-paced classes came from.
Yeah, and that's really interesting to think about that process because I'm sure for someone, and this kind of gets into what I want to expand upon a bit. Like, you mentioned this idea of you have a course that's really lecture based, right? Even if you're all together, it's just a lot of information, particularly for things that are maybe around compliance, right? Or test prep, right? For leaders, as you mentioned there. So are there, that's got to be one factor, I would imagine, but how do you decide whether a topic is better suited for a live workshop versus that, self-paced format?
I think that is the number one of is it completely lecture based or no. I also have Google certifications, level 1 and level 2 as a
Mhm.
self-paced class. And that is more hands-on. Like when
Yeah.
I teach that live, it's very like, hey, click while I'm clicking.
Mhm.
So I was like, I don't know if this would lend itself, but it does because there's different topics. So
Yeah.
it's you have to think about the organization of the class. So
Mhm.
because it's very clearly Google Slides, Gmail, whatever,
Mhm.
is very
Yeah.
clearly segmented, that lends itself well to a self-paced class because you know exactly how to organize the class. So then you have to kind of decide, well, how do you want to do the component where they should be clicking? And it's mainly just saying, hey, it's self-paced for a reason. So have a different device here, click with me.
Yep.
But the good thing is you have me forever. Like you can pause, you can
Right.
rewind, you can rewatch. So that's the benefit of a self-paced class versus an in-person class. Because the in-person class, once you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
So if I'm teaching a class on Jotform, once I'm done, I'm done. Like bye.
Right.
You can ask
Yeah.
me later, but we're done. So, but with this, you can go back and watch the videos and what. So
Mhm.
you have to think about your audience. Like, is this a topic where they would appreciate stopping, where
Yeah.
they would appreciate, what, I'm only going to watch 5 minutes every day.
Mhm.
If it is, it's good for an online class.
That's such a great way to help someone make a decision. I think, like, is this going to work in that format? This past year, I've done a few different things that are pre recorded. And then, I was actually with a group in Oregon a few weeks ago where I think there was 5 months, like once a month of, pre recorded stuff. For a couple of them, you could join live, but most people watch the recording. And I really had to think, differently than a webinar where I might say, jump into the chat or let's put on the timer and try this out. And I'm right here to answer your questions. And I had to say, like, if you're watching this on a recording, pause, like take your time, ignore this timer that the live group is doing, because this is your opportunity to really slow it down if you want to. And it's really interesting to think about, a live workshop, you hand someone off, the resources, the interactive document, right? Or collaborative space, right? With all the links. It's not the same as hitting pause or rewinding the same way we would if we like miss something in a book. So, you mentioned a bit about the sectioning, right? Knowing that something might fit because of that sectioning. What does your process look like when you sit down to map out a new self-paced course, maybe from scratch when you don't have a live workshop, that you're modeling it after?
I think it's all about setting up systems and organization. So the first thing you need to think about is your audience. So what's going to benefit them versus yourself? So another thing I would kind of put to the last question you asked me too is it has to be something you can have fun with. It has to be something you can be passionate about, because nobody wants to sit and listen to this for an hour. Like no one wants, so it has to be something that you can talk to yourself about and still have fun,
Right.
so it has to be something. So it has to be a topic that you're really passionate about and you can literally just talk into the ether, like talking to a white wall, and still be like, yay, look at this.
Exactly.
So that's part of it. And then when you're sectioning it out, you want to think about your audience. So my first class was very, look, here's the 5 hours, pause when you want to pause, have a good day.
Yeah.
But I had to think about my audience, right? So I had to go, okay, yeah, like I would be okay with that but a lot of people want it to be
Right.
sectioned, and even though they can, because my mindset was like, well, you can pause anytime, so why do I need to tell you in the pause? Just pause it and go make a sandwich. But you have to think about your audience. So when does it make sense to pause? When does it make sense to put this into a different section? What's going to make sense for your audience? Because that's who it's for. Because once you do it, the benefit for you is once you do it, it's done, right? You just may need to go update certain sections later. But so you want to think about, hey, let me just put the work into it to make this what it needs to be for my audience first. Then I can section out the rest. But that's the first thing, is to think about what's going to be best for your audience, what's going to be best for your content. Okay, I have a 10-minute video. Can I break that up into 2 5 videos? The thing where I just want to do a 10 minutes, I could be done, one video and done. But what's best for my audience? Okay, you know what? It's really best if I just put these into 5, because after that 5, I'm introducing something new and their eyes are going to start glazing over. So just separate that into 2. So that's going to make a world of difference when you sit to organize it all out. Then you want to think about support. So how much support are you giving live? How much support are you giving on any kind of platform or something like that where they can talk to each other? Like all of those kind of things you want to consider and work out ahead of time. So like I use different platforms, and one of them has a comment feature. And what I started noticing is people would ask questions on the comment feature. And I'm like, sweetie, I'm not looking at these comments. Like I'm not there. So I had to realize that. And I had to put it on my class. Like, hey, if you have a question, email me here. I'm not looking at these comments. Or I may look at them, 3 weeks later just to approve, oh, she's awesome comment, but if you're asking like, hey, I'm about to take the test tomorrow, I'm not looking at these comments. So just understanding that though, and making those organizational systems of what's going to be best for my audience. How do I set this all up? So all of that is in your planning stages when you're planning this all out.
And that, that idea of knowing your audience, just the enthusiasm, right, that you have to have, when you're in the room together, the energy, of course, is very different than when you're recording something right ahead of time. So I love that piece, and really being proactive on what the support looks like. Is it the community? Like, do people know that you have a live aspect once a month, right? Or like whatever that might be. And it may not always be the same answer for every course or every group. And so I love that example you gave of just kind of setting everyone up for success, right? Like using the commenting or knowing where to go with questions, because that might be something someone has more of an afterthought, right? Than, being proactive in their design. So from a tech perspective, there's lots of different ways, right, that you could share this material with someone. What platforms or tools do you rely on to host and deliver your courses, and what made you pick them?
So there's so many options. I started this back in the day. So consider that, like when I started this, Google Classroom was only for education accounts, all that kind of stuff. So, I didn't have all the options we even have now, but I wanted a platform that was kind of all encompassing. So I wanted it to handle payments. I wanted it to be self-sufficient. I didn't want to have to go click a button every time somebody paid. And I needed them
Totally.
to pay, get in the system. Also wanted it to be safe where they couldn't like download anything.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, look, if you put something on the internet and people want it, they're gonna
Right.
take it. So like you gotta, they can they can just record the whole screen, If they want it,
Exactly.
they're gonna take it. So you gotta just be okay with that. But you also want to just be as safe as possible
Totally.
with your intellectual property. So I wanted something that could be safe. I wanted like just different things, and I looked at Teachable, and I looked at, I think it's Kajabi, if I'm saying
Yeah.
it correctly. So I looked at both of those, and the reason why I went with Teachable is because I wanted it to be a one-time payment. So because I'm very type A,
Yeah.
I didn't want that every time somebody bought a course, it was this percentage. I was like, I don't like, I'd rather just pay up front and you just give me my money.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that was Teachable, and that's why I went with Teachable. And I'm still with Teachable
Mhm.
till this day, and they have a lot more like drip content and a lot more stuff that I don't use for that course, for the courses that I have. But I do like that it's available. They can get
Yeah.
certificates now, and so I like some of the stuff that's on there. I just don't use it because once I set it up, I'm like, it's working. Why would I change it? But so Teachable is one. I also use with a different online course. So I do an educational leadership
Mhm.
certification program for the state of Louisiana, where it's like an alternative certification program.
Mhm.
And the educators can come, and we actually use Teachable for that as well. But we also pair it with Google Drive,
Mhm.
where that's where they turn in materials. So Teachable is where they get materials. Google Drive is where they turn in materials. Now, some people will say, well, just put it on Google Classroom or something like that. I like my system. It's just one of those things where
Mhm.
if I like my system, it's working for me, I'm going to use it. So I do use Teachable with Google Drive, and it works for us. But yeah, I think besides getting into like the video platforms and how
Mhm.
to create your video, because all of that is part of it. Like all of that is
Yeah.
part of it. Is it a payment system that's only in that, or can you use Stripe and PayPal? And all of that is part of it. So you want to look at the entire thing to see what platform is best for you. But those are the ones that I use.
And those are great recommendations for someone who's maybe creating something for a group, right? That,
Mhm.
they're working with, or maybe they're within a system already that has, an LMS or learning management system, and they're kind of
Yeah.
leveraging that. And you mentioned a piece which I think is important for someone to consider, is there a back and forth, right? Is someone consuming information, or are they submitting artifacts, along
Yeah.
the way? And you just alluded to this, right, in terms of the video and the different tools and all of that. But what role do video, those downloadable resources, maybe even reflection activities, play in the courses that you build?
A quick note from the presenter of today's episode, Jotform. Jotform lets you build a form in minutes. Student survey forms, homework submission forms, online quizzes, and so much more. You can start from scratch, or if you want to get a head start, check out their collection of free form templates designed with teachers, schools, and districts in mind. Learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education.
It depends on the course.
Mhm.
So if it's educational leadership, it's me giving to you. I don't need anything back.
Mhm.
But I also have a course on Teachable called Support Time. So what support time is you can book time with me one-on-one
Yeah.
to go through what you really want to go through one-on-one. So that wasn't at the start,
Right.
but I had people contacting me and going, hey, can you read my 4 constructive response answers and give me feedback? I'm like,
Yeah.
no,
Like so much
like
out, right? Only
I'm
so
like,
much
I
time in
want
the
to, but
day.
when am I supposed to do? And honestly, I used to do it. I used to do it
Yeah.
until it became too much. Like there's too many people singing me for, and I was just
Mhm.
like, this is taking. I think I'm grading work again. This is taking me
Yeah.
out.
Mhm.
So that's where support time came from. So it is one of those. Hey, if you do need that extra help, if you do want that one-on-one, if you want me to literally say live what you heard me say over there, Sure. So that's where support time came from,
Yeah.
to help with that one-on-one support. So it depends on the course. Now, where we're talking about the educational leadership certification, it's called TEL. So I'm just going to say TEL.
Yeah.
So when it comes to TEL, you have to have things to download. You have to have templates. You have to have reflections. So that's where Google Drive comes into play. And that's why I explain it where Teachable, I give it to you, Google
Right.
Drive, you give it to me. But that's where they get all the templates and the downloadable resources and then upload all of their stuff. So it depends on the course. Some
Yeah.
courses, Google certification, we don't really need, like, that's it. It's just Google certification, go take your test. There's
Yeah.
really,
Mhm.
I don't have anybody doing support time for Google certification. But for education leadership, because you have that writing component, it makes sense. So it just depends on the course.
Yeah. And I think for someone who's just making decisions, there's no one size fits all, right? There's
Absolutely
plenty
not.
of options. And you might find like that you have something that's asynchronous, that's self-paced, and you want to offer something additional, right? Maybe there's office hours that like everyone can jump in within these 2 hours on a Thursday evening. You'll be available for kind of like a busy Zoom, if you will, of people jumping in with questions. Or there's an option, right, for a dedicated component, right, that one-on-one time or reviewing material. So I think that, that doesn't have to happen in all situations, but just understanding that, you can customize that experience for your learners. And there's lots of different tech resources out there, to help make that happen, is huge. And, you mentioned already some of the back and forth, like submitting something to you in some courses or maybe taking a certification exam, right, is the outcome, right, for someone. How do you measure success for a self-paced course kind of beyond that completion rate?
I think it depends. Honestly, okay, I'm gonna say a couple of things with this. Honestly, I don't look at completion rates.
Hmm.
Why? It's up to you if you complete the course.
Yeah.
So I don't look at completion rates as a measurement. I look at the final outcome.
Hmm.
So did you get certified?
Yeah.
Did you pass the test?
Hmm.
And that's when I ask, hey, give me this data, please. Give me this
Right.
data
Yeah.
and tell me what happened after. It's almost like doing PD in schools. You giving me an evaluations like Desiree, it's awesome. I learned so much. That is great. I will take it, but
Yeah.
that doesn't tell me the real benefit of the
Right.
PD.
What
The
happened
real
a month
benefit
from
of the
now?
PD is, first of all, did you take it back to your classroom and actually do it? Second of all, how did it impact the students?
Yeah.
So is this one of those, like, I don't even look at the completion rates because I feel like it's like an evaluation, right? Oh, yay, you clicked through all the buttons. Did you learn anything? And did you pass the test? Or, whatever it may be. Like with my support time, I help people like start their businesses and
Yeah.
branding. And so, did you actually do it? Like, am I seeing something in 6 months come out of our conversation? That's way more valuable than, did you complete the course?
Yeah.
So that's what I look at.
And that type of measurement, right? It's giving you really important data, right? That's
Yes.
not just yes, like people moved through things, like that tells you something, right? But it may not be the information that's really vital for
No.
understanding, whether or not something is working.
Yep.
So,
And that's what, when I'm promoting, I can say, well, I have a 93% passing rate.
exactly. Right.
If I say I have a 100% completion rate, who cares?
Right. What
Did
does
it
that
make a
mean? Right.
difference?
Yeah, that's
So
right. Someone's not trying to take a course just to complete it, right? Like they have their own goal in mind, right, of why they're
yes.
joining you, for something too. So if someone's listening here, maybe they're, a coach and they're helping educators in their school or district, earn a certification or understand a new topic a little bit better, whatever it may be that is their kind of domain of expertise. What advice would you give an educator who has a great idea, maybe starting to think about how they would share it, but is feeling overwhelmed on where to start?
Start with the purpose of doing this online course. So what would be the benefit? Because if you start looking at that and you're like, well, there's not really a benefit to the online course, there's a benefit to the content, but not the online course, then that's going to tell you that's not the route to take. You may need to do a live session. You may need to do a webinar, a live webinar. So start looking at what's the purpose of this? What are people going to get from it? Start there. Just start very simply there, and then start looking at, okay, well, what is the right content for this course? And start with your organizational plan. How would I break this up? Now, I will give you a little warning that sometimes when you do that organizational plan, you look at it and go, okay, I got 100 videos to do, and it gets a little overwhelming there. So every step can be overwhelming. It's just one of those things that you kind of have to get over, bite the bullet, and continue with. So when you're looking at those 100 videos, you go, you know what? I'm only doing 5 of those this week. Maybe I'll do 1 video per day.
Right.
And, come up with that end goal of, okay, well, this class is going to go public on this date, and then plan those videos out so you're not sitting there for 3 weeks sweating, and they'll start hearing the joy leave your voice,
Right. Yeah.
because you're just like trying to get through it. So just plan it out. I know when I first bought Teachable, I bought it in, I think, like the summer, and I didn't push through my first course until February. And I just felt so dumb. I was like, oh, I paid for this platform. I'm not using it. Da, 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 da. But it was so good because I gave myself time to just get all my stuff done. And then when it did hit in February, it just took off. Yeah. So, just time it out. Give yourself grace. Give yourself space. Unless you do have a deadline somebody's paying you for, it's your deadline. So you be honest with yourself. I always say, do not lie to yourself. And that, May, you're going on a vacation. Why are you saying you're going to do videos that week?
Right. Yeah.
Why are you saying you're going to do videos the week before? Why are you saying you're going to do videos the week after? You're going to be exhausted. Just be honest with yourself and go, okay, those 3 weeks, nothing's getting done for this project. And, so just be honest with yourself. It's going to help you further down the line. So the big thing is just get started. Get started with your planning and your purpose.
I love that. I love that. Just kind of anchoring in the vision, right? What you want those outcomes to be, right? And then just start to break it down. So this has been so useful, just unpacking what it means to have a self-paced course and what you need in order to be successful and connect with your audience. So for anyone who's listening today, who's curious, right, about the work that you do and wants to learn more and wants to follow along, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
Well, if you can get to my website, you can get to me. I'm sure people, if you've heard me speak before, they're like, she always says that. So educatoralexander.com. So if you go to educatoralexander.com, you can get my email, you can see my newsletter, my YouTube channel, my book, which came from the online class. So online classes can lead to stuff because people are like, we want it in book form now. I'm like, look. So that's where the book came from. But you can find everything, my self-paced classes, everything is on educatoralexander.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all of these wonderful strategies with listeners.
Well, thank you for having me. I always love doing any podcast or working with you on any project. So thank you so much.
This was lots of fun. It's always great catching up with friends in the ed tech community and talking about things we're both passionate about. And I'm sure you could hear Dr. Desiree Alexander's enthusiasm for this topic, as well as my curiosity and interest throughout our conversation today. But let's finish up, like we always do, with a few key points from the conversation. First, start by asking whether your content truly benefits from a self-paced format or if it's better suited for a live session. Section your course content with your audience in mind, not based on what feels easiest for you. Choose a platform that handles everything: payments, protects your content, fits your workflow, you name it. Measure success by real outcomes like certifications and career impact, not just completion rates. Make sure to follow along with Dr. Desiree Alexander's work. Like I said, and you heard throughout our conversation, she has oodles of resources to explore to continue this conversation around self-paced courses, as well as all things ed tech. A big thank you to Jotform, the presenter of today's episode. To learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise, head to jotform.com/enterprise/education.